Hey everybody! We're going to talk about movies, man. Movies are like the best, right? They take us to different worlds, make us laugh, make us cry, and sometimes they even make us think. Cinema has been around for over a century, and in that time it's become a powerful form of art and entertainment. From the silent films of the early 1900s to the CGI-laden blockbusters of today, cinema has always reflected the world around it while shaping our perceptions of it. This essay is going to be like a crash course in movie history. We'll start at the very beginning and journey through the decades, checking out all the big moments and big names. We'll see how technology changed the game, from the first moving pictures to the digital revolution. So buckle up, grab some popcorn, and get ready for a wild ride through the history of cinema. Before we had actual movies, some people were already experimenting with capturing movement. Edward Muybridge, a British photographer, was one of these pioneers. He figured out a way to take a series of photos in quick succession, which created the illusion of motion when played back. His most famous work is Sally Gardner, at a gallop from 1878, a series of photos of a horse running. Then came Thomas Edison, the inventor dude. He and his team developed the kinetoscope in the late 1800s. It was a peep show device that let one person at a time watch short, moving pictures. Think of it like those old-timey machines where you look through a viewfinder and crank a handle to see a short film. But the true fathers of cinema were the Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis. These French dudes invented the cinematograph, a device that could record, develop and project moving pictures. Their first public film screening was on December 28, 1895 in Paris. They showed a bunch of short films, including the iconic workers leaving the Lumiere factory. This event is considered the birth of cinema as we know it. The first few decades of cinema were all about silent films. Since there was no sound, filmmakers had to rely on visuals, gestures and facial expressions to tell stories. They used title cards with written dialogue or narration to help the audience follow along. One of the biggest names of the silent era was Georges Méliès, a French illusionist and filmmaker. He was a master of special effects, using trick photography and clever editing to create magical and surreal films. His most famous work is A Trip to the Moon from 1902, a whimsical adventure about a group of astronomers who traveled to the moon. Another giant of the silent era was D.W. Griffith, an American filmmaker who revolutionized storytelling in film. He used innovative techniques like close-ups, parallel editing, and epic battle scenes. His most famous and controversial film is The Birth of a Nation from 1915, a groundbreaking but deeply racist film about the Civil War and Reconstruction era. In the late 1920s, everything changed with the arrival of sound in films. The film that really kicked off the sound era was The Jazz Singer from 1927, starring Al Jolson. It wasn't a fully talky film, there were still some silent scenes with title cards, but it featured several scenes with synchronized dialogue and singing. The transition to sound was a big deal. It completely changed how stories were told and how actors performed. Suddenly, dialogue became a major part of filmmaking, and actors who couldn't deliver lines well were out of a job. The sound revolution also led to the development of new genres, like musicals and gangster films. The 1930s and 1940s are often called the golden age of Hollywood. During this time, Hollywood became the center of the film industry, and big studios like MGM, Paramount, Warner Brothers and 20th Century Fox churned out tons of films. This era gave us iconic stars like Humphrey Bogart, Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn and Ingrid Bergman, just to name a few. We're talking classic films like Gone with the Wind from 1939, Citizen Kane from 1941, Casablanca from 1942, and The Wizard of Oz from 1939. These films are still celebrated today for their storytelling, acting and technical achievements. The Golden Age was a time when Hollywood truly captured the world's imagination. Section 6. A world of cinema beyond Hollywood Hills. While Hollywood was booming, other countries were developing their own cinematic voices. In the 1950s and 60s, we saw the rise of important film movements around the world. Italian neorealism emerged after World War II, focusing on realistic stories about everyday people struggling with poverty and social issues. Key figures in this movement included directors like Roberto Rossellini and Vittorio De Sica. Then there was the French New Wave, which broke away from traditional filmmaking conventions in the late 1950s and early 1960s. These filmmakers used handheld cameras, jump cuts, and experimental editing to create a more personal and self-aware style. François Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard were some of the leading directors of this movement. These movements, along with others from Japan, India, and elsewhere, showed that great cinema could come from anywhere and didn't have to follow Hollywood's formula. Section 7. Pixels over film, the digital takeover. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, digital technology completely revolutionized filmmaking. Computers became essential tools for everything from special effects to editing to distribution. Digital cameras replaced film cameras, making filmmaking more accessible and affordable. One of the biggest changes brought about by digital technology was the rise of computer-generated imagery, or CGI. CGI allowed filmmakers to create realistic-looking creatures, environments, and special effects that were impossible to achieve with traditional methods. Films like Jurassic Park and The Matrix pushed the boundaries of CGI, paving the way for the effects-heavy blockbusters we see today. The shift to digital also changed how we watch movies. With the rise of streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and Disney+, we can now access a vast library of films from around the world instantly on our TVs, computers, and phones. Section 8. The future of film stories on any screen. So what's next for cinema? It's hard to say for sure, but one thing's for certain. Storytelling will always be at the heart of cinema, no matter how technology evolves. We're seeing a rise in virtual reality, or VR, and augmented reality, or AR, experiences that could change how we experience films, making them even more immersive. The lines between film and other forms of media are blurring, with video games, interactive storytelling, and transmedia franchises becoming increasingly popular. The future of cinema is likely to be a wild mix of innovation, experimentation, and most importantly, captivating stories told in new and exciting ways. Section 9. The enduring magic of cinema. From the first flickering images to the digital marvels of today, cinema has come a long way in a relatively short time. It's a constantly evolving art form that reflects our world, our dreams, and our fears. Whether it's a silent masterpiece, a classic Hollywood musical, a gritty foreign film, or a CGI-laden blockbuster, cinema has the power to transport us, move us, and stay with us long after the credits roll. So, the next time you sit down to watch a movie, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey that cinema has taken to get here.